I'll welcome you to this July 21st meeting of the Johnson City Commission. We're meeting in the Commission chambers of the Municipal and Safety Building at 6 p.m. If you are watching online, we have a feed successfully transmitting by way of YouTube, but I understand there are technical difficulties occurring at Comcast and Charter, and so there is a note posted there indicating that you can find the meeting on YouTube. And so with that, I will invite Pastor Lester Lattany to bring our invocation. If everyone will please stand.
Mayor and commissioners and city managers, as we gather today, we certainly want to pay homage to a legend in our community who is now passed and going to be with our Lord, Louis Gump, whose life, legacy, and love for this community certainly shall never be forgotten, and you certainly want to remember his family in these very challenging times. But Louis is happy. I believe he and Lucy are probably walking together around heaven about right now. Let's pray. Eternal and all-wise God, our Heavenly Father, we come to you in the divine, precious, and mighty name of our Lord and our Savior, Jesus the Christ. And God, we thank you because you are the one who established and ordained government that it might be able to bless those who are governed and not those who are governing. We pray, God, that all of that we do tonight and that all that is said and all that will be done will be about blessing your people who live in Johnson City and whose lives are affected by policies that are made and by governing in the proper manner. So, God, we look to you for your guidance. We look to you for your direction. We look for you for civility, that we might be able to realize that without you, we're nothing. But with you, all things are possible. Bless and keep us in your divine care this day and every day of our lives. For it's in the precious and divine name of our Savior Christ that we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you'll turn and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Ball, the first item on the agenda.
Yes, Mayor. The first item of business is consideration of the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. The first one is consideration of approval of the minutes for the regularly scheduled City Commission meeting held Thursday, July 7th.
Is there a motion or modification?
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Abstain.
Next order of business is item 3.2, the consideration for approval of the minutes for a special call City Commission meeting held on Thursday, July 14th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. If there's not objection, if you'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Abstain, I was not present.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is a presentation from Alicia Phelps on the remote worker campaign. Thank you, Alicia.
Good evening. I don't think, is my mic on? Yes, okay. Good evening. Thank you all again for working with us through the remote work campaign. We have now officially been in this for a little over a year. So I'm going to have some quarterly stats from the fourth quarter, but also an annual report that I think you'll be really excited about. So we began our advertising campaign. This is, I'll start April to May 2022. The reach that we did in phase 4 was actually one of our higher reaches that we had at 962,000 folks reached with our advertising. Again, Dallas was our top performer. Nashville and Chicago were also who we were advertising to, and of course, same outlets as we've typically been doing, and you'll notice that CTV was our top performer there. So let's move on to the exciting things. From June 2021 to June 22, our reach ended for the year at 3.5 million. The most popular time of year was right now last year, August and July of 21. And then you'll see our top cities in order of performance. Dallas has continually remained on top, followed by Nashville, Chicago, and then while we part of the year advertised in California, they still remained in one of our top markets. And of course, same outlets as we have been doing before. So we're really excited about 3.5 million people not only were, got to know the remote work Johnson City brand, but they also got to become familiar with Johnson City in the area here in Northeast Tennessee. We're still making the news, so we found this last month in June. It's movebuddha.com. And the biggest takeaways of this is that Johnson City was ranked number 2 with 273 people moving into the area for every 100 folks out. And that means that we top cities such as Knoxville, Nashville, and Brentwood. So that's definitely something to applaud your efforts about. As we dig a little bit deeper into our applicant process, we do have Sabrina Morton here with us this evening, and she's been our program coordinator for remote work. So she's had the pleasure of working with each of these applicants individually and learning a little more about them. So overall, for the whole year, we had a total of 234 applicants. And 202 of those were eligible, so I think it's pretty impressive. Why were 32 of them not eligible? They already lived here. Maybe they didn't qualify for other circumstances. And then we accepted 30. If you'll remember, our goal was 30, so we definitely reached that one. But what's really exciting is the potential impact that these folks brought to the area. $452,446 in 1 year. So again, thank you all so much for the support of the program, because that's a really great number to see. I will not go over the locations again, but as you can see, primarily we saw a lot out of, all over the country actually, but as I look at this, the South was really big for us, but we also saw a lot of folks from Oregon that we did not expect, Wisconsin, folks that we were not advertising to. Top industries. I do want to highlight, we had this last 2 quarters, we had a lot of entrepreneur and business owner applicants, and then this past quarter, higher education peaked as one of our top industries, which was really interesting. And you all are familiar with our weekends that we host our accepted applicants and folks that are already part of the program. We will have one again in August this year, just a few weeks from now, sponsored by Bank of Tennessee, and we provide them with things to do as they get acclimated to the area. And maybe some are still considering Johnson City in the area as a fit for them. And so we're really excited this time because we coined it around the Meet the Mountains Festival. So they'll have a neat activity to do on Saturday. And our next event will be in fall 2022 as we continue with the program. So Remote Roots Johnson City, what that is as we move into the next year with Remote Johnson City, it is our goal to create a network of remote workers in the region where Johnson City serves as the hub. So whether you have been part of this program or not, which we are still continuing, we want to make sure that this area remains the hub for remote workers and things to do and meetups. So we'll continue with that with bi-monthly and then move over to monthly meetups. We had our very first one in June, and we went to Buffalo Mountain with a special thanks to Alan Deerstone for leading that hike. So I know they had a great time. So in the fall, we'll have a family fun day at Hands On. And just a refresh of what we're going to be doing this year with the program continuation. How that will work is remote workers in Northeast Tennessee that apply and are officially accepted through the program will receive a $500 referral bonus for any accepted applicant into the Johnson City remote work program. So they do have to move into those perimeters still. Accepted remote workers will receive $500 to choose, and an opportunity to choose from other incentives. But if you refer someone, whether you were part of this program or not, and you live in the Northeast Tennessee area, you will also receive a $500 referral bonus with that. So a little bit difference in the dollars that we're working with, but we'll still be having aggressive advertising as part of the promotion. And we'll also do our fam weekends and receptions just like we've always been doing. So it's going to be neat to see this Remote Roots group grow as we work through the next year of this program. And we also are working with Ballot Health through a lot of those meetups that we do as they provide a variety of different things for the participants. So, how did we do? I want to share with you all a few of the folks that have been part of the program, 3 very short videos, and we're going to be using these in our advertising this year as well. So I will let them speak for themselves.
People are really proud to be from Johnson City and really work to make the community great, to be able to have the amenities like high-speed internet, to be able to do my job, of course, and then also to be able to settle in and like do some light homesteading. I have an affordable, great piece of property. I have a house that's way bigger and nicer than I'd be able to afford elsewhere. And I'm able to like live the lifestyle that I want. That's just really cool. You don't get that everywhere.
We went fully remote and they said, hey, you know, we had to get approval, but you can move anywhere in the country. Like, it was the first place I thought of. It's gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen on this planet. Area, everybody's so nice. That Southern hospitality is a real thing. I just fell in love with the area and there's so many things to do. So the perfect thing is just be walking downtown, finding a place to eat, sit down, just hang out for a while. Coming from Nebraska, Midwest, it's like heaven on earth.
Harder to hear, but that one was entitled Southern Hospitality, and at the end he said, "It's heaven on earth here." So we'll move on to the last one.
So my job is really stressful. I look for any opportunity to get outside while I can work. My first time in Johnson City was for work. I had come through to visit some agencies that we work with. Looking around now, we've got mountains everywhere you look. So I really was excited about an opportunity to settle down here. Being able to step out on the back porch and just have that is really calming and actually helps improve my work. You can log off and go kayaking. You can log off and you can go biking. That's really attractive for me.
So none of those videos were scripted or anything like that. We caught them at one of our events and just asked them a few questions, and that's what came out of it. So it was really neat to have real, true stories of people that actually moved here because of the program. So again, thank you all so much for your support with it. We're really excited to see what year 2 brings. Do you all have any questions?
Do you track that we had 202 applicants and 30 that we accepted? Do you track the ones that did not get into the program? Are they still coming, do you think?
And Sabrina can attest that we've had quite a few that end up coming anyway. We really don't keep a tracking system of where they go afterwards, and some, maybe they don't follow through with the steps because it is quite the process to be part of the program. Maybe they don't follow through with it, or they decide to go elsewhere. But I think we've only had one that has ended up going somewhere else out of all of those that we've accepted. So.
The financial impact, the 450, how's that determined or calculated?
There's a great schematic that NetRep has worked with us on, and that's kind of their participation of the program, and it's a percentage cap that it's based on their income level, and then they multiply it by a few different factors, but I'm happy to send that to you all if you want to dig a little deeper with it.
Sure.
You can also just kind of see what a certain level can contribute, whether you're a remote worker or not. It's pretty fascinating to see, so I'll send that to you all.
You mentioned that there are business owners moving here
Yeah.
and entrepreneurs. If you're able to disclose, what kind of business?
We've had quite a
businesses?
few, and Sabrina, I may ask you to elaborate. I know some of them have been in wellness. I know some have been in marketing. Anyone else that? Yeah, there's been some remote work entrepreneurs. So it's been interesting. A lot of them have partners who their goal is to also open a business, and some of them are even looking at becoming farmers, which I think is pretty neat too.
I think last time you mentioned the average salary. I mean,
Yeah.
the threshold was $50,000, but the average salary of this 30 group is what, around $100,000?
It's well over 100,000. I
Wow.
think we've had one applicant that's in the 55,000 range, but most of them will average above 110 to 130,000.
And, part of it's getting them connected into the community. Are they getting involved in different types of organizations? Or
I think so. That's what our goal is with this remote work Meetup group is to get them acclimated, because we understand it's difficult moving somewhere you may not know someone and you're working remotely all the time, maybe in your home. So we've been able to find through the receptions that we now invite all the applicants to that are here, as well as the meetups. We'll continue that to get them into the community. I know some have even mentioned that they want to run for office, or they want to be part of some community organizations. And so that is a part of the program, is you have to also volunteer, or you have to be active civically within the community in which you choose to live. So
That's great.
pretty neat.
Thank you.
Other questions? No, thank you.
Thank you all so much, and I'll send you that information.
Ms. Ball?
Thank you. Commissioners, the next order of business is consideration of the approval of a temporary occasion beer license for Johnson City Convention and Visitors Bureau, 302 Buffalo Street, Johnson City, Tennessee, and this is for Meet the Mountains Festival. And I think we have Brenda here.
If you'll give your name and business address.
Brenda Whitson, 302 Buffalo Street, Johnson City, Tennessee.
Thank you. And have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol in the city of Johnson City?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree to abide by them?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Tell us about your event.
I'm going to let Ashley Cavender, she's our new event coordinator, and she's the Meet the Mountains director. She's been involved with Meet the Mountains from year one, so we felt very fortunate to bring her on board to run this festival. Ashley.
Hi. So I'll go ahead and share what is going to be happening this year for Meet the Mountains Festival. It will be held August 19th and 20th. And on the 19th, we'll have the festival in Founders Park from 4 to 10 p.m. and then on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we anticipate having live music throughout the entirety of the festival. And we will also have local and domestic beer selections. We will have our installations that have been very well received by the community. And zip line, rock wall, the demo pool. We'll also have axe throwing and vendors that will encompass the elements of earth, water, and air.
So is a beer permit and an axe throwing is that
Yeah.
Okay.
They do have to sign a waiver for the axe.
Okay.
And basically, if you're not familiar with Meet the Mountains Festival, it is a festival that will showcase this region's beautiful assets, and it provides that setting in downtown, and we intend to do that for years to come.
So the only one I get asked about are the jumping dogs. Will they be back?
Oh my
What is
goodness,
that
I
called?
forgot about the jumping dogs.
Air
It's
dogs.
the air
Air
dogs, yes. They will be back.
Okay. So for those who don't know what that is, maybe you could explain it.
So it's actually a collective group of people that are all around the country, and they look for these events or festivals where they're asked to attend. And there's some actually up in Bristol that love coming to Meet the Mountains Festival, and they bring their dogs, and you're on a big dock, and you throw a toy of
Thing.
sorts, a thing that is enticing to the dog, and they jump as far as they possibly can, and it is very invigorating to watch.
So it's the long jump for dogs.
Yes.
I will say I was at a conference last spring and talked to somebody there from North Carolina, and when they'd figured out that I was from Johnson City, they told me about coming to Meet the Mountains, and they had otherwise really no knowledge of Johnson City but for having been here for that event. So thank you for your work, and good luck with your event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, the next order of business is consideration of a beer license application for the Black Olive, located at 202 East Main Street, Johnson City, Tennessee. Staff recommends approval.
If you'll approach the podium and give your name and business address.
It's Mo Farouki, and 202 East Main Street.
Have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol in the city?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree to abide by them?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
I will make a motion and just tell you, we've been waiting for you.
Thank you so much. I know this
Yeah.
is taking so long.
We're excited.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. And to echo Commissioner Brock, we've been waiting for you. When do you anticipate opening?
Maybe just about some like 10 to 15 days.
Okay, so maybe by first part of
the
August?
second week of August, yeah.
Okay. Well, anything else you'd like to share about your business or the menu you'll be offering?
But just we're gonna be so excited that it's some like we're gonna be some like the restaurant is Italian restaurant, but we're gonna be mixing it some like with Moroccan food because I'm originally from Morocco. We're gonna be having special some like for the weekend. We're gonna be having some special Moroccan food included.
And
Very good.
Will that beautiful patio be a
Thank
real
you so
center
much.
part of your
Yeah, you're gonna be
restaurant?
surprised from inside. Just that's the
Okay.
reason it's taking so long because we need to have it some like so good.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, we wish you well. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Commissioners, the next order of business are consideration for several road closures. Thank you, Andy, for coming on up. The first one is a road closure request for Good Samaritan Ministries Back to School Party.
So, Good Samaritan Ministries has requested a closure of Commerce Street as outlined in the provided site plan from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Saturday, August 6th. The Special Event Committee has reviewed, and we would recommend approval.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next consideration is road closure request for Johnson City Community Concert Band.
So the Johnson City Community Concert Band has requested soft closures of King Street as outlined in the provided site plan from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Friday, August 12th for their free community concert, Summertime, Music in the Air. The Special Events Committee has reviewed, and we would recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
The next order of business is consideration of a road closure request from Visit Johnson City for Meet the Mountains that we heard about earlier.
So Visit Johnson City has requested a closure of Commerce Street as outlined in the site plan provided on Thursday, August 18th from 12 p.m. through Saturday, August 20th at 10 p.m. for the Meet the Mountains Festival. The Special Events Committee has reviewed, and we do recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
And the last road closure for consideration tonight is a road closure for Science Hill School for their homecoming parade.
So Science Hill High School has requested soft closures of Pectolis Road, Liberty Bell Boulevard, and Cotty Jones Lane as outlined in the site plan provided for their homecoming parade on Friday, September 30th from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Special Events Committee has reviewed, and we recommend approval.
Move approval.
Is there anything you'd like to share about the event?
It's our standard homecoming. We hope to include, more of the community.
And if you can give your name and address.
Sure. Tim Van Thornout, schools 1509 John Axon Parkway, in Johnson City. But we want to include the elementary schools too, and hopefully get some of our younger community members to get involved as well.
Thank you. Now the motion and a second?
Second.
Okay. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
And I would like to say, Mr. Hauser, I really like the format y'all are presenting these road closures now.
Thank you.
It is, everything's right there. So, thanks a lot.
And I would also, for all of the applicants, just the planning to have these requests coming earlier, to be getting a homecoming request in July is exceptional. Thank you.
It is great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Andy. The next consideration, Commissioners, is consideration of the consent agenda.
All right. I was to go left. I'm sorry. Commissioner Hunter, what would you,
It's been
do
a
you have
while.
anything to pull?
Yes. 721
721.
and 722.
722. Commissioner Brock? There's only two left.
There's no, I'm good then.
He picked me.
Okay, so the first one is the Preston Construction Science Hill High School Interior Renovations Project. And
We have
lucky
Brian
Mr.
Ross.
Ross.
Hey there. How you
What
doing?
question do you have, Mr. Hunter?
I just, I guess just a refresher on why we value engineered out the classrooms, and then what brought about being able to bring this back in.
Sure. So the original bid that came in was about 6.8 million. After the value engineering process, about $1.5 million was reduced from that to put it at 5.3 construction budget. And that's the contract that was approved last month. The school board decided part of that value engineering was to just omit 6 of the rooms from the renovation project entirely, among other things. So this part, they really decided it was fair to keep those 6 rooms in the scope of work so that all of their science rooms would consistently have the same features, equipment, finishes, and that type of thing. Not all of the value engineering items are being put back into this change order. So it's about another, almost 800,000.
Okay.
So it was decided it was just the right thing to do, or a fair approach to make all of their science rooms consistent.
That's good.
Are there other questions? I guess that's it on that one. And the next one is the Gov Connect DBA Connection Trend Micro. So I'm going to assume Randy.
Well, I would say, and I think Randy's coming up, but the school had notified us that they would not have somebody available for this meeting. So they did reach out and make sure that we had all the information that we needed to be able, in case this was a question. And so Mr. Trivett's able to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, great. Randy, you always do a good job
I'll
with
try to
summaries.
answer any questions that I can.
The IT stuff from the schools doesn't usually have a lot of detail, and, you know, when we're talking a $500,000 contract, I kind of want to know what Trend Micro Threat Protection Solutions are.
Well, and the purpose of this is for securing their network. It's very similar to what we did at the city a few years ago, where we had to add additional software protections for ransomware attacks or malicious software that comes in. So this is to upgrade their network security. The cost differences in there that you may have looked at based on all the bids that came in is because the company who was the awarded, or who's the proposed awarded bidder, it's the low bidder, does a lot of work for the school systems already, and they were able to receive a very hefty discount from the supplier in order to do this. And once that supplier gives that discount, they'll only give it or grant it to one company, and so that's why the other companies couldn't provide that same discount.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Are there other questions? That's good. Okay. Thank you, sir. So with that, there are 4 items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion for action?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commissioner, your next order of business is a public hearing, first reading and public hearing. This item is an ordinance appropriating additional funds to the various departments and divisions of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, with the additional revenue from local, state, and federal resources. Ms. Jennings is the expert on this, but I will just say as an overview, this is an item that's done annually in July, and it takes all of the budget amendments that occur for the previous year and puts them into one document so that you can mesh this with the document that was approved by the commission for the FY21 budget, and it helps with the audit so that all the information's available. Did I do okay, Ms. Jennings?
I've heard that explanation 6 times, and it sounded familiar. So with that, we're opening public hearing, and this is specific to the fiscal year supplemental budget ordinance. Opening public hearing for any comment on the budget ordinance. We'll close public hearing, turn to the commission for action.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
And Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Your next order of business is a second reading and public hearing. This ordinance is to consider raising the seal bid limit to $50,000. This is a result of state law that changed this year. You heard this, the first reading of this at your last meeting, and Ms. Dillon is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there
Got a question.
questions for Ms. Dillon? All right.
Yeah.
If you'll come on up to the podium. They start to wave it through the window.
Could you give us like how this applies, what kind of instance we would use this process?
Sure, especially right now, you're seeing all these price increases, and we're having an issue with getting things timely, because first come, first serve on any products. This is gonna put us ahead of the scale, at least up to the 50,000, which is all that we can do that's allowable by state. So that really will help. Yes, we've seen many instances where it would have been very beneficial. Yes.
Now, can you describe the process? So it's not a sealed bid, but there is still a competitive and evaluative process. So talk through how
Yes,
that
sir.
still protects the taxpayer interest.
It will be what we call, for that value and down, will still be handled by purchasing.
Mhm.
It's still advertised, but it's what we call a formal quote, which can be done much faster. The best part about a formal quote process is we can see if something is not right, if there's no interest. When you have a sealed bid, you don't know what you're getting until you get to the actual bid opening, and you've waited a couple weeks for that. So it's a much faster process. It's still just as effective, and it's still advertised on our website, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Dillon, while you're up there, might as well ask this too. Are you seeing any relief in the supply chain?
No. Of course, I think fuel is doing a little better, but no, we're still, almost every contract that I'm even soliciting right now, I'm like, do we need to put in an escalation and de-escalation clause? We're being open to it. I think we've kind of learned to go with the flow. We try to do our best to value if the request is just because they want more, so we do ask for proof and for justification before we ever consider that, but no, we're not seeing any relief. Fortunately, everything we have brought to you, as you saw with the last agenda, was really heavy. We are trying to get out there as quick as we can to make our moves and to get our orders placed. Like the items we have for water sewer, those are like way months and months down the line, but we wanted to get out there and get it done. So no relief yet,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And so this is a public hearing, again, dealing with an ordinance to consider raising the sealed bid limit to 50,000. So I'll open the public hearing for comments on that item. We'll close public hearing and turn to the commission for action.
Move for approval on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there is not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
The next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4814-22, which is the second reading with no public hearing. This is to consider assigning the B4 zoning district to an approximately 4.8 acre territory located along the 4500 block of the Bristol Highway proposed for annexation. Peyton, thank you so much. It's great to see your smiling face.
Good evening, Commissioners. So we're just going to start with a quick reminder of where we are in the timeline. Tonight, we are actually only discussing the zoning assignment. So that's what you all are voting on tonight, is the second reading of the zoning assignment. And then at the next meeting, it'll come back for its final resolution, which is associated with the annexation, and its third reading of the zoning assignment, and that will be the public hearing. So there's no public hearing tonight. Instead, it'll be at the next meeting. And just a reminder, I know you guys have seen this before, but this is the request. It is a 4.7 acre territory located along the Bristol Highway. The applicant is seeking a zoning assignment of B4. It is currently split zoned in the county. So you can see the front half is commercial right now and the back half is residential. They are requesting to come in as completely commercial for the whole parcel. It was denied in Sullivan County. Their most recent attempt was in 2021. They needed 13 yeses to pass. As you can see, they only got 10. They are planning to do an RV sales lot. This concept is not binding, however, they are a business owner of an RV sales lot right across the street. And they are planning to do a type 2 buffer along the back side. That is actually required by the code, so there's no way that they can get around that. Again, I just want to remind the commission that this is only fronting the Bristol Highway. It does not have access along North Austin Springs Road. So while it does back up to residential houses, its only access point is along the Bristol Highway.
And a type 2 buffer, 6-foot trees on 6-foot centers. What's the type 2 buffer?
The type 2 buffer is for every 100 feet, you have the option of doing either a 20-foot with 14 trees or a 15-foot wide buffer with a 6-foot fence and 8 trees.
And I had mentioned, Mayor, 2 weeks ago, I went out and visited the site, and the type 2 buffer's already been installed. And it's installed considerably off the back property line. I don't know what the footage is, but it's a good 7,500 feet or so of distance. So there
And
is.
these aren't pictures of the subject properties buffer?
No, this is just an example of a type 2 buffer for you all.
So there's kind of a land buffer there too.
All right, thank you. Are there questions for staff?
I do have one other question. Back on the Sullivan County, can you flip back to that slide? Okay. Was it approved by the Planning Commission and not approved by the?
Correct.
County Commission?
Correct.
Okay.
It was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, but then it failed at County Commission.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there a motion for action on second reading?
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commission, your next order of business is consideration of Ordinance 4815-22, second reading with no public hearing. This is to consider assignment of the B4 and RP3 zoning districts to an approximately 30-acre territory located at the loop of Boat Dock Road for proposed annexation. Peyton, thank you again.
Again, just as a reminder, we have these 3 annexations, and they are all in their same step. So tonight, we're talking about the second reading of the zoning assignment, and it is not a public hearing, but it will be a public hearing at the next meeting.
As will the previous one, right?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. Yep, these 3 are just going through the system together. So the request is for this parcel right here. It's approximately 30 acres located at the end of Boat Dock Road, and the applicant is seeking a zoning assignment of B4 and RP3. You can see that the B4 would be up closer towards Knob Creek Dock Road, with the back half being the proposed RP. There is no concept plan required, but there are plans to do townhomes, a restaurant, a dry boat storage, houseboats, and again, I just want to remind you all that this is non-binding. The whole thing is currently zoned commercial in the county. And you guys have seen these pictures before, but these were what the applicant submitted.
So, refresh my, what are they getting? Are they getting any land use concessions by being in the city, or is it just being in the city? If they're already zoned commercial, it's all zoned commercial?
In the county, yes.
I'm sorry, never mind, I had that flipped in my head. Carry on, thank you. Are there questions for staff on that, please? If not, is there a motion?
I move for approval.
We have a motion for approval on second reading. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. If there is not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
And Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commission, the next order of business along the same lines is Ordinance 4816-22, second reading with no public hearing, is to consider assigning the A1 Agricultural Zoning District to an approximately 10.2 acre territory located at the termination of Ridgetop Drive, proposed for annexation.
Once again, this is on the second reading of the zoning assignment. So just like the previous 2 that you just heard, it's not going to be a public hearing tonight, but at the next meeting it will be. So as a reminder for this piece of property, it is approximately 10 acres. It's located at the back of Garland Farms at the termination of Ridgetop Drive. The applicant is seeking a zoning assignment of A1, and there are plans to do a single-family house. Again, that's not necessarily binding, but there's not a whole lot that you can do with the A1. There is no concept plan required. And it's currently zoned residential in the county, and the future land use map proposes that this go residential, but agriculture was actually a staff recommended zoning assignment because to come in as a residential, because there's no binding concept plan, there would be the potential to expand the subdivision, and that piece of property and our city services could not handle that. So at the recommendation of staff, the applicant is coming in with a request of A1, which could be supported by all city services.
Could it be further subdivided as A1 or?
No.
Okay.
And that was the idea, to prevent the ability of the future subdivision.
And Peyton, you may not have the answer to this, but a number of years ago, we rezoned some property just adjacent to that, the MS1. I think we did a fairly extensive traffic study at that time. This is adding a lot of residential capacity in that same area. Will that traffic study be updated, or what are we using to, I have a feeling we'll probably be hearing on that particular topic.
What do you mean when you say that it'll increase the residential capacity?
Well, it's townhomes, right?
No, this is
the one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong thing. I apologize.
The applicant plans to add one house.
I flipped down to the wrong thing. I apologize.
No worries.
Okay. We'll get to this other one.
I'll expect that
So if
question
there's
later.
no further question on that item, is there a motion?
Yes.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Sorry about that.
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commission, your next order of business is Ordinance 4817-22, second reading and public hearing, which is an ordinance to rezone approximately 15.11 acres from A1 district to R4 district to build 108 rental townhomes. And I think Whitney is going to join us for this one. Thank you, Whitney.
Good evening. Now that I can see what I'm looking for. This request is on Suncrest Drive. It is zoned A1 currently, knowing that there is commercial around it and residential around it, and it is within the city limits currently, so we're not speaking of an annexation. What they would like to do is 108 rental townhomes. They'll be accessed by 2 private drives. The area is here. This is what the site looks like today. It's kind of just rolling hills. And then their site plan, they've made they've done all the things that staff asked them to do to update the site plan, like including where stormwater would go, adjusting some things about their buffer, including their parking, and describing their density. But they will have 2 private drives and decel lanes, and will need to provide sidewalks along Suncrest. They have a buffer along the residential portion. As you'll recall, this is zone commercial and this is zone commercial, so it would not need a buffer for those. Just some things to note about the rezoning. There won't be sewer available until 2023, sometime in the spring of that, so they'll have to time their development in order to make sure that that happens, and that a school bus stop needs to be accommodated, as well as it has been mentioned that we don't necessarily service this area for schools yet, so that would be something to consider as they come online. There's some other preliminary plat concerns that I've put in there, but that's really more of a planning commission issue. And just so you know what the adjoining looks like, that house there faces Old Gray Station Road, and this is Suncrest. So the future land use calls for this area to be commercial. It could be residential. Staff doesn't actually have an issue with it being residential, or because they would be the townhomes, and the commercial implications could be just traffic-wise could be about the same. The bridge plan does support some policies as far as adding multifamily. And this is an area where it is adjacent to goods and services, so it's not necessarily completely very far away. So there was a neighborhood meeting, and there were 2 members of the public who came, and they were adjoining property owners. And then we have fielded 4 calls so far who are not interested in more development in Gray. So.
Okay, may I go to my question?
You can go to your
I was
question.
way ahead of myself a minute ago. That, again, the property, the MS1 property that we brought online a number of years ago, we did a pretty extensive traffic study, I guess. Because now we're increasing density here, how will we look at the traffic patterns now? Will we go back and use that original study, or will we re-up that again?
I would really say that Phil would answer that question. I don't like to answer transportation questions when there's somebody in the room that can.
The simplicity of it is pretty easy to articulate what the impact would be. Basically, look at the number of units, multiply it by 4 to 5 since they're townhomes, and you compare that to the roadway itself, which happens to be, I believe, a state route. It's a Super 2, so they've done some nice things already. The question that we would pose would be whether or not it would require a left turn lane off the main highway. We don't believe so, but we did require the right turn lanes. So it'll take care of itself as the area develops. I think you have an annexation coming up in the same area, which has other issues. We're not concerned on 108 units, to be frank with you.
I think a lot of the traffic that was concerning on the other project, there was no intensity of traffic at any particular time in that
Yeah.
project as well.
What we are doing is getting requests for signalization, I believe, in that area.
Okay.
And so we've looked at the side streets. Eventually, there will be. You obviously have the school, and then you're starting to see a lot of development with the county school. There probably will be a signal. It's not justified today, but I suspect that you'll see that over the next 5 years, probably.
You're talking about the great fossil side and the school?
In this area to manage the traffic flows. This would not meet the warrants.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for staff before we open the public hearing?
I do want to say that the applicant is not able to attend the public hearing. They had an emergency, so just to let y'all know that they may not be able to comment.
All right, thank you. We'll open the public hearing, and this is on the ordinance to rezone the 15 acres at, described in 481722. So public hearing is open. We'll close the public hearing and turn to the commission for action.
Move for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commission, your next order of business is the consideration of ordinance 4818-22. This is the second reading and public hearing. It's an ordinance to rezone approximately 20 acres located at 2162 South Roan Street from B4 district to RP5 district. Peyton, thank you.
Good evening, Commission. This is the site right here. It is on South Roan, just behind the Food City. The request is to go from B4 to RP5, planned residential, to build 145 apartments for low-income residents that are either disabled or over the age of 62. And this is the site that has been selected to potentially serve as the future home of the Johns Fair residents. So here is the concept plan, as you can see. This is public hearing, so I'm going to kind of go back through this just really quickly. But again, it's 145 one-bedroom apartments. That is a density of 20.4 units per acre, which the RP5 allows up to 27.2, so they're staying below that. You can see that there is lots of open space and walking trails. And then the Phase 2, if there was any development for Phase 2 on this back portion, it would have to come back before you all as a concept plan amendment, because this piece is included with the rezoning. The current land use map and the future land use map show that this site should be commercial. Staff believes that residential is appropriate, one, for this site because the nature of the residents, they need proximity to transit, sidewalks, businesses. Again, right across the street is the grocery store with pharmacy within walking distance. So considering that and the higher density multifamily, staff does believe that residential is appropriate for this site. There was a neighborhood meeting. There were some concerns about what this would look like when it's managed, and so how the management style would be. There were also some concerns with the interaction between the residents and the neighboring businesses. Staff and Planning Commission have recommended approval, and here are some bridge plan policies to support that. I will leave you all with a vicinity map, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there questions for staff? There are no questions for staff. We will open the public hearing on Ordinance 48-1822, seeking comment on the rezoning of 20 acres at 2162 South Run Street.
Hello, Commissioners. As a resident of Johnson City, I'm here today to talk to you about scheduling a public hearing or a forum
Please
to address safety
limit your
concerns
comments to the business on
regarding
the
Johnson City
agenda.
Police Department and Chief
Please
Carl
limit your
Turner.
comments to the agenda item.
The pending federal lawsuit alleges that JCPD
Please limit your
refused to
comments to
investigate
the
a serial
agenda on
victim
the agenda
after
item,
local victims
please.
came forward and
Sir, I'm
told
going to ask you to sit
investigators
down
evidence.
and limit your comments to the agenda item.
Good evening. My name is Carmen Cook. I am a resident in South Johnson City, and I'm here because I'm in opposition to the rezoning of the property for multifamily dwelling. The reasons for that are, first of all, I wondered if these things were considered about this end of town when it was selected for the John Severely location. So we have the highest rate of crime. We have heavy traffic right there at the Food City, not just vehicle, but also bicycle traffic of homeless and also pedestrian. We already have high population intensity there. We have multiple low-income developments all around there and 2 trailer parks. And we have the largest concentration of homelessness, I believe, of anywhere in the city. We have homeless camps all around our neighborhoods, very close proximity of our neighborhoods. We are currently having to call law enforcement sometimes 3 to 4 times a week. So we just do not feel safe. And we can see the intensity of this, exponentially just, multiplying all the time. Our commercial businesses, we see a lot of them moving out. We were excited to hear that Ingalls had bought the property, the old Kmart property. They've pulled out. Food City, they are the biggest business that we have now. I can't speak for them, but I can say that just because of what we're already dealing with related to the homeless population, they have had to implement mechanisms where the buggies can't be rolled past a certain point off the parking lot. And no other food cities, I've gone to the others, they haven't had to implement those mechanisms. All the businesses have had to post no trespassing, vagrancy, all those concerns. But also another, Arby's. Arby's has closed their lobby, first of all because of COVID, but they're not reopening that because there's a lot of activity going on in that vacant parking lot. So these are just some of the things, some of our struggles that we have. So then another part that was brought out, so the initial plan is for 145 units. That's one thing, but if the first part's approved, when they propose to put 500 units in there a couple years down the road, that is not going to work for the infrastructure there where we're at. And again, my neighborhood borders this property. Another concern we had is the June 6th meeting was referenced. There were 6 folks there from our neighborhood, but only a couple of people received letters to even come. We were told at that meeting, it's pretty much a done deal. That's what it was told. And so we're supposed to go through due process before decisions are made. So I know that this stems from the revitalization of downtown, which that's important, but we know that the homeless, that's not the look or that's not the feel that we want down there. That's hindering that. And it feels to me, and not just my neighborhood, but also I've got an article right here, March the 26th, from residents at the John Sevier. And they're talking about the non-residents, the safety issues that they're having because of the non-residents. And it says homeless people in here. There is a security company there now, but they're saying it is not helping. This one resident says she's asked every person and none of them feel safe. So my question here is, so why would you take, this is a good opportunity, the John Sevier Center, those conditions, I've never been in there, but the conditions are apparently deplorable. These folks do deserve a better place to live. I don't dispute that. Commissioner Brock, you said in one of your articles, hey, this is an opportunity to give these people the homes that they deserve. I agree with that, but why would you take these folks out of the pot and put them in the frying pan on our end of town? So even if the decision were made not to relocate the John Sevier residents, we have a major problem on our end of town, and it needs to be addressed. I can't imagine what our end of town is going to look like by 2025. So, and it almost, seems like this has been discussed by the city since 2019, 2021. And some of the things suggested to get the homeless away from downtown, well, let's just close down the melting pot. That's been documented in news articles. Also, the homeless or the residents, a lot of those depend on those services that are right there, convenient to them downtown. Now, yes, you can say in South Johnson City, there's the grocery store, there's the transit, but wow, right there where she's saying the transit, that's very dangerous for anybody to try to get out there. But anyway, again, the infrastructure is not going to ever support, what's needed to be done here. So anyway, I just, I appreciate the opportunity to express our concerns. And, the reason that this is so important to us is, I've experienced this before. I was raised in East Johnson City where the dump was. And 20 years later, that end of town has been dumped. It's nothing but there's no grocery stores over there. There's a bar over there and a lingerie store. And that's all that's been there for 20 years. And I see that happening to my end of town. We are on a slippery slope. And so for that reason, for the current state of our end of town and for the John Sevier residents who deserve a better place, there's no need to pick up a problem. It's well documented, the history of picking up something that's been a problem and then put it, right in the midst of a worse problem. So thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook.
others wishing to address ordinance 481822?
I'm Rachel Hawley. I live at 2411 Circle View Drive, and I'm in opposition of the John Sevier Center coming to Saffron as well. And other reasons are safety issues. We look at the safety survey that was done on Johnson City's website. A survey was sent to residents asking what their biggest concerns were. The number one thing was safety. And I don't see anything safe about moving the residents there for reasons that homeless prey on the John Sevier Center people, maybe at times, or running the same circle. I don't know. Also, traffic issues. We have traffic issues over there right now. We have several accidents. Some of them have had fatalities, even pedestrians fatalities. And the red light on South Rome Street is one of the most dangerous intersections in Johnson City. So I don't understand how you can put more there without fixing what we have. We have a 2-lane road. I just don't see that as safe. Also, I saw maybe on your website where Mr. Nance, I think he's from the LHP, said that there's like 11,000 vehicles coming through there per day. Well, what I saw, I think it's citydata.com. I looked at 9/17/2020, and the reading was 14,000. Also, I know that there have been 225 emergency calls from John Sevier just this year, and that's going to add more traffic to emergency services coming over there. Also, I mean, I really see the downtown coming to life, and I appreciate that. But also, the median income for our city is $43,000 a year. I just don't. I want a nice downtown, but when do the residents come in here, the taxpayers? I personally have asked for speed humps on our side of town. Something else. Everything is no, we can't do that for you. So I just don't understand that. But $43,000, I don't see downtown being big is going to help those people. I think that's all I have.
May I ask
Thank
you a
you.
follow-up question?
Sure.
The speed bumps, were those for your neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay, and did you go through an application process to
Yes.
request those?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just curious if that or on the highway.
Yes,
Hi, my name is Haley Meister. I also have some safety concerns. While a lawsuit and investigation are pending
Please limit your
against
comments
our
to this
police
rezoning request,
department,
please.
the
Please limit
community
your
demands
comments to the
following
item on our
actions.
agenda.
Demand
I'm
one,
going to ask you
suspend
to sit
Chief
down. You
Tarrant.
need to limit your comments to the item on our agenda.
Hey, I'm David Hall, and I'm a resident of Johnson City, and I'm further committed to holding my public officials accountable to protecting the victims of rape and sexual abuse.
Please limit
while
your
the lawsuit
comments to
and
the agenda
investigation are
item.
pending. The community
Please
demands
limit
the
your, we are
following
talking
actions.
about a rezoning of 20 acres on
So
South
our
Run
first
Street.
demand
I'm
is to
going to
suspend
ask you to sit
Carl
down,
Turner,
please.
pending an
Please
full
ask,
and
I'm asking
transparent
you to sit
third-party
down.
investigation of the Johnson City
Officer, I'd
Police
like
Department.
this gentleman removed.
On this zoning, the B4 to RP5, now you've got a store on one side, you've got a business above it, which is the thrift store. Okay, and then of course behind that, in that property is the residence, and it's sectioned off. Now, the safety concerns, everybody, you've already heard about that, you've heard about the traffic, congestion. I understand the transit has put in a cost for residents, to people to travel. And the people from John Sevier, I don't know if they're gonna get a break, maybe y'all will get a break, you know, but if they have to travel, their cost, that's gonna affect them, as far as that goes. I just wish somebody from Ashley Academy was here, or Food City was here, that would be able to state, comment about this zoning situation. I know that, I think the Melting Pot was asked to close for 30 days at one time due to the John Sevier Center, and they refused to. And it's good that Good Samaritans was doing what they're doing downtown. That's acceptable to the, you know, people that have those needs. There's no needs in South Rome that can supply them people at that point, whether it's homeless or whether it's the low income. The traffic light situation, from that traffic light, it started that traffic light going down South Rome, I almost get an accident at least once a week. It's because of the way it's congested, the way people back up, and they stop. You got Burger King, you got One Stop, and you got Arby's, and you got that section of road is between Arby's and Long John Silver. And people like to turn there when it's a double line that shouldn't even be able to have access to turn into that road, off road and backing up traffic, and almost have rear-end accidents. I see that a lot. Of course, like I said, I saw just this week alone, already going to work early in the morning, I've seen 2 people on bicycles. One I thought I should have called the law on because I thought maybe they was a little bit unsafe. But I'm bringing up this issue about the safety thing. But transit, there's no pull off for the, I mean, there's going to be a lot of work going to be put in just to make that work, even if you put that John Sevier Center there. The problem that I think you're going to have, not only you're looking at, you might have flooding issues. If you take all that land that's there, it soaks in the water residue, it runs off, and you put pavement down, hard surfaces, there's been many places in John City that's flooded because of that hard surface. And that's something you need to be looking at very, very heavily and being concerned about it. Groundbreaking situations, you're always there for that and being involved, and that's great. But after it's said and done, you know, you may not have an interest in it no more. And we want to make sure the interest is now and not a problem later. I know we have some consistent comments about the same thing, but you know, this 3-story building is going to be throwing, you know, it's not going to be really a even mix for that neighborhood. I'm saying I just want y'all to really be seriously thinking and be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I need your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, your name and address.
Shelby Holly.
Shelby.
It's 2411 Circle Drive.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Scott Macwolm. I'm at 306 West Chestnut Street, and I'm a teacher at Ashley Academy. So I just came along because I've been interested in this and listening to the folks from the neighborhood. Ashley just moved there a couple of years ago, and we're, you know, hoping to help revitalize that section of town. When I moved to the Tree Streets a year ago, I started walking to school. And so I'd like to, again, echo, my wife doesn't like me walking to school. My kids don't, not because of safety, well, because I'm old, but the sidewalks that you're talking about, no. okay? I mean, I'm okay crossing across Rowan Street to get from, the Burger King, you gotta cross over to the sidewalk, cross back. I'm okay doing that at 7:30 in the morning, not worried about traffic, and I'm still pretty spry. But, for the folks going into that development at 62 years old, 62 years or older, I'm only 61. So I'm not opposed to what's going on there, because I agree. Everybody deserves a home. My wife worked for Habitat for Humanity for a lot of years. But we need to, if we're gonna revitalize that, there's a bunch the city has to do to help build that, because I agree, there's nothing, when I walk from, Chestnut Street to Ashley Academy down by Tipton Haynes, other than that Food City, there's not many stores that I go into. There's no services there, and the people that are being relocated, they're gonna need to get to whatever services they have. And, what they said about the bus stop, I wouldn't wanna try and cross that road to get the bus stop. So I think looking at that infrastructure, looking at the sidewalks, the drainage, we have drainage problems at Ashley, and I don't know what the name is, Catbird Creek or Brush Creek or whatever that creek is there. When it rains, that gets pretty flooded down by Food City, so I can imagine that's something they'd be looking at anyway. But I think it could be a great area of town if we could revitalize that. But right now, it's a pretty, it's a nice walk on a winter mornings, but it's, I'm not doing any window shopping along the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis Prater, 37601. Number one,
What
suspend
was your
police
address,
chief
please?
Carl Turner.
Sir, limit your items to the item on our
Pending an
agenda.
open and
Please
transparent
sit down
third-party
or limit your items
investigation
to
of
the comments
Johnson
on the
City Police
agenda.
Department.
Sir,
And to
I've asked you
audit
3
all
times to
rape
sit
kits
down.
held or
Officer,
processed
please
at the
remove this
Johnson
gentleman
City
from the
Police
disrupting our
Department.
meeting.
Demand 3, reallocate a percentage of the budget for the Johnson City Police Department.
I'm sorry to the folks who actually are wishing to speak to the item on the agenda. Anyone else wishing to speak on 481822?
Hi, I'm Wendy Graham, 1411 Squibb Drive. I tend to try not to be emotional with the decisions, but this is kind of hitting our side of town, like I said before. Peyton, I'm sorry, I'll get you back, I promise. I tend to like to do more with facts and figures. So from our GIS software here, just wanting to let you know, this is from the affordable housing online. There's 39 low income, whether it's JCHA, public housing, Section 8, whatever. This is the map of the city of Johnson City. This is the estimated population from GIS data that has on this, if you go into quadrants here, this way and this way, 1429 populated, 1366, which makes it a total of 2795 populated low-income residents in this area. Of course, here you have again on the west side of town, which is the 1556, and then you've got them scattered all up and through here. Yes, we need the infrastructure before we need this zoning, for sure, because once this zoning is put in, infrastructure is going to probably follow afterwards. We all know that. I have a couple of questions about it. Really wanted to know why the John Sevier Center is actually moving. I don't think that's ever been really clear, other than the suspect of kind of being a downtown blight of sorts. I understand JCDA is buying the building. Of course, their funding source is the city of Johnson City. So why are they buying it? And is it their, which in turn becomes our responsibility to relocate these people? I mean, they've bought, people have bought things before and have left it up to them to relocate themselves. So, and I'm not saying homeless, because they're not homeless. They have a home, they're paying the rent, just like all these other low-income housing people are. Just want to know what other properties was considered, why this property in particular. How many people were kind of in, I know it's LHP and Hank Carr and all them, but who was responsible for picking this location, and did they look at other locations? And I'd kind of like to know how. The estimated John Sevier, estimated population, and this is estimate, of course, you know there's 150 units, but this one was 324 residents. So tack on another 324, that's over 3,000 on that one quadrant of the city. And I know we provide services for all low-income people, but it seems like we're only locating them in certain areas. We most certainly don't have them here or a lot up here. And as I understand, the city of Johnson City services all Johnson City. And this is only in city. I mean, there's county ones too, rural ones, which I didn't, there's no sense in bringing data for. But just to think, and this isn't, this hasn't got the USDA rural sections. This is mainly Section 8, 202, elderly, disability. But the questions are, the infrastructure needs to be done before this rezoning, for sure, in my opinion, stated as it is. We don't have the grand services over there that everyone's trying to make like we do for them. I personally use that Food City quite a bit, and I guarantee you if this comes up and if the current people with the current situation transfers over, I will not be frequenting the Food City there. Traffic is an issue, infrastructure is an issue. FEMA has it within, I don't know, it's a few hundred feet of being a flood zone. So it's not technically a flood zone, but it's within proximity. So once you start moving stuff around, it's going to be close. So just please consider that, and to answer any of those questions for us that we just don't understand why. And I'd really be interested to see why this particular property is the only one that they're really considering, when the whole city there has a lot more potential. It may just be that it's, a really good deal for the land price. But I think it does need to be made public of why this particular one was chosen, why it's being zoned. Because the zoning change is not going to be that much. I mean, from what it can now, you can still have condos above commercial with what it's zoned now. It's just more friendly for the John Sevier Center. And what's to say that maybe if it's not a done deal, the John Sevier Center is not the one that goes there. You've already got this now, and then you're going to open up another whole ball for something else. So just my opinion of wanted to be stated.
Thank you.
Sorry, Pete.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on Ordinance 481922? We'll close public hearing, turn to the commission. I would remind the commission, and I guess just by way of remark, what we are dealing with here is a zoning question, and so it's about land use. And so we aren't talking about people, we're talking about land use. And so while I understand the angst or concerns around those topics, the question before the commission right now is this 20 acres plus or minus appropriately used as a multifamily residential property, or is it better used as a higher intensity, a business use, like a box retail store, a car lot, or an auto garage, or something of that nature? And so I think it's important to keep that in mind, that the question that the commission's being asked is to assign a zone to the property. The commission is not involved in making a decision about what property, but I am somewhat familiar, because remember, the petitioner in this case, I believe, if the staff could confirm, I believe the petitioner in this case is LHP. Is that correct? So the petitioner in this case is a private developer, and so the question about who chose the site, well, anytime you're trying to do a private development of this nature, you've got to have a buyer and you've got to have a seller, and they've got to be willing to work together. In the case of this particular housing arrangement, there is an added complicating factor, and that's that there are a whole lot of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, federal government rules that affect how the residents of the John Sevier are housed, where they can go, how they can go there. And so that's why you've heard a lot of this talk about buses and pharmacies and groceries, because it's required to check boxes as it relates to what HUD will approve by way of moving those people. But that's not really the question before us. The question before us is this 20 acres and what land use to apply to it. And so I just want to clarify, that we're not voting on where to put the residents of the John Sevier. I heard words about homeless, and we certainly have homeless, and I don't want to diminish that. The 140-some units that are at the John Sevier are not homeless. They have homes. And one of the fundamental issues that I think we've seen when we've made visits to other cities, when you're trying to house a low income or a disadvantaged or a vulnerable population, is that they are best served by being surrounded by the totality of our community. And so when you have lots of different people coming together in one area, they have a tendency to enrich and improve the community for all of them. And I say that not as somebody who lives outside of one of Wendy's circles. I live a mile from 300 Johnson City Housing Authority units, and my mother-in-law can see them from her bedroom window. And so we're talking about people in their homes in a broad sort of way, but what we're talking about in this particular action is the zoning. What has further complicated this whole conversation is a lot of the rules around HUD. If you would like to know if I could be king for a day and just wave a scepter and make this go any which way, I probably would say, well, let's move it into 3 or 4 different smaller developments. Let's move it into developments that have some mixed use, that have some market rent or market rate housing and subsidized housing. And there are a lot of other things that I might do differently, but our hands are tied because that's not part of the formula that HUD allows. And so we have to deal with the reality of what is on that side. But again, what we're dealing with right now is a rezoning request from LHP. And so with that, I'll turn to the commission for other deliberation or questions they may have.
Well, Mayor, you kind of did your introduction saying we wouldn't talk about some of these things, but you have talked about some of these things.
Yeah, it's funny that way.
There are some worthy things that have been brought up that I think we need to follow up on, Ms. Ball. And I think that's a direction for staff to look into this area on, the red light, the sidewalks, and in the long term, and speed bumps. In the long term, as development occurs on this side of town, of which I live. I don't live off South Rome, but I live off Cherokee. So I'm over there all the time, and I'm in this area. And I had not heard that the project and the Ingalls project had gone away. But
I don't think it has.
Yeah,
I think Ingalls
yeah.
has just
It's
frozen
delayed
their
because of
construction because of costs.
Right, correct. And so we will see more development, more advanced development, more services that are going to be available in that area. The other comment I want to make is I have a family member who lives in senior rent-assisted, I prefer to call it that, housing in one of these areas that was put up on the screen here. And these are wonderful people, and they deserve to live in housing that is healthy, really kind of helps stimulate their lives, and whatever and wherever this project takes place, being able to be outdoors in housing that's planned, that has grass around it, that has water features around it, that has trails around it, is going to be a much more healthy environment for these people in the John Sevier. We know, and the question was asked, why do they have to be moved? We know we need to move just simply from a standpoint of better housing to leave the John Sevier. And for me, the sooner the better it would be. But we've conflated a lot of things here in this discussion tonight, from the homeless to services that are provided. How are they going to get services if they're out there? Well, not all the rent-assisted units, like Watauga Square, like where my sister lives, they don't have somebody across the street serving meals. And so there are services that are available that are through our social service agencies that assist these people in these homes as well. Reverend Murphy down here probably can attest to that. Is that a true statement?
Yes, ma'am. There are organizations within our community who are committed to serving the residents of the John Sevier. I know this has been a difficult and challenging topic for some time. I would like to echo what Mayor Wise has said. We are asked to rezone, we're asked to rezone this property, and that's the topic at hand. But in terms of John Sevier residents, I do have the privilege and opportunity to serve them through a local organization. They're loving people. They deserve good housing. This is an elderly population and mixed with disabled. They're not criminals. They're not bad people. They're people like me and you, and they're our neighbors, and they deserve the love that we have with one another.
Thank you.
Mr. Hawley, I just had a question. You were talking about intersection. Were you talking about across University Parkway, or were you talking at Food City?
It's actually, when you turn off University Parkway, you turn on South Road.
Heading towards Food City?
Yeah,
Okay.
you head toward Food City.
Okay.
The biggest problem is there's a double line there, not to cross until you get to Arby's. There's an access road between Arby's and Arby's. And that road gets used illegally because they're entering and they're backing up traffic. And they can't cross over in the long line coming lanes because that's turning lane for the red light. But when they do that, a lot of times there's people that's coming off the turn off the red light, which as my example just happened 3 or 4 days ago. They try to panic stop and make that turn. If they hopefully they got no traffic, they go right through the traffic. If they do, then everybody backs up. And most of the time, if you got 4 or 5 cars in line, and I'm at the tail of the end of the line, somebody made a turn at the red light, I got a panic stop because everybody's backed up.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
That road access needs to get a cutoff. There needs to be a cutoff there, so it can't be accessed from straight across the road. It'd be fine to let it be accessed on that lane and turn into that. But it needs to be curved where nobody will want to go over.
Appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure because I wasn't clear and
That's the
have
worst
them
problem.
look at it.
Take a look at that, yeah.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions? Is there a motion for action? I'm going to answer one other question. Somebody asked about why did JCDA buy it? That's just a vagary of state law. The Johnson City Development Authority is organized under the section of the Tennessee Code that deals with the housing agencies. And so it was just I think they ended up being involved because it was a mechanism that could own the housing, just by way of context. Is there a motion?
No, go ahead.
I'll make the motion for approval.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. There's further discussion.
I will say that abstained in prior opportunities to vote concerning this matter, and after speaking with Ms. Ball and our city attorney, Ms. Santos, we feel that I don't have a conflict of interest, so I'll be casting a vote today.
Thank you, sir. If there are no further comments, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Commission, your next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4819-22. It's the second reading and public hearing. It's a zoning text amendment of Article 6, use requirement by district to allow commercial accessory structures to encroach into the front and side setbacks at the gateway overlay.
Good evening. This, really nothing has changed to this text amendment, but just for the public's sake, just to go over some of the issues. What we were incurring from different commercial developers was this issue of having multiple public frontages and trying to maneuver some of our regulations in a way that is aesthetically pleasing for their business, as well as meeting the needs of our code. And so the Planning Commission worked really hard to create this kind of what they would like of a way to kind of assess it. And so one of the things that they would like to do is consider it a case study and use it in the Gateway Corridor overlay first. And so this text amendment speaks to different types of accessory structures, one being awnings or dumpster enclosures. Both of those have come up in the recent past. And to use it as a case study to see how it could be used in this one, and if we need to apply it in other places of the code, we at least have the language. So if it is applied to, say, the design overlay district or a particular zoning district, that is another text amendment that would come back before you. So that is really all that I have.
Are there
If you have
questions? Questions for staff?
Move for approval.
We have a motion.
It's a public.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got carried away.
Apologize.
There's a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 4819-22? This is the text amendment to the overlay district.
Good evening, Zoe Wells, 702 East Myrtle Ave. I think we're on demand number 2, which is to audit all rape kits held.
If
or
you'll please
processed
limit
at
your
the
comment to the
Police
items on the
Department.
agenda, ma'am.
Demand
Please
number
limit
3
your
is the
comments to the
allocated
items on the
percentage of the
agenda.
budget for the Saunter
I'm going to
City Police
ask you to sit
Department
down.
to institutions
Please
like
limit
the
your
Family
comments.
Justice
If the
Center
officer will
and
help
others
this
in the
lady find the
community.
door. Folks, I'll remind everyone, this is a public meeting, not a public forum, okay? And so I can't talk about whatever I want to talk about. I talk about what's on the agenda. This is a public meeting, not a public forum. Our community has lots of public forums. There are places where these issues get a hearing. This is not one of those places. Are there others wishing to speak to ordinance 4819-22? We'll close the public hearing, turn back to the commission for
I will
action.
move for approval.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. If there's not further discussion, we will call the roll.
Commissioner Brock.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
The next order of business is consideration under other business. 10.1 is an annexation. It's a request to proceed with an owner consent annexation for the Keebler annexation. It's to consider a request to proceed with the annexation of approximately 135 acres located along Suncrest Drive. Peyton?
Good evening, Commissioners. Just as a reminder, we are at a new spot on our timeline. We are at the request to proceed. So this evening, this is just an initial request coming to you all to continue diving into this annexation. If this is something that you want staff to spend the time studying and putting together a plan of services and putting together a fiscal report. The request is for approximately 135 acres located along Suncrest Road. This was previously the Keebler and the Childress farms. This portion was Keebler, this being the Childress. And the applicant is seeking a zoning assignment of RP3. The concept plan is in front of you. Again, this is for a zoning assignment of RP3. There are plans to do 453 single-family homes with 133 townhomes. And again, I just want to remind you all that this is non-binding. This is just something that they've thrown out as a general idea associated with that RP3. This is what the plan of services includes, so if you all,
But they would have to have a site plan. If RP3 is assigned, they have to come back. Remind me what the restrictions are in RP3, if
So-
that's applied.
for the zoning code, the zoning district specifically of RP3 does require a concept plan.
Okay.
However, different statutes for annexation does not allow a binding concept plan when coming into the city. So staff is actually currently investigating exactly what this means and what we are and are not allowed to require. As of this point, I will say that probably not, but there is a chance that they will be required to come in with a concept plan because of the RP zoning.
Kind of a chicken and the egg thing.
And it will also have to have a preliminary plat that comes in front as a subdivision.
But if they get annexed as RP3, it wouldn't have a binding site plan because the annexation component didn't have that, but the RP3 requires it. So which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
That is what we are trying to determine,
Okay.
Mayor-wise.
And we can figure that out. I mean, at this point, we're early enough in your famous chart.
Correct.
We will have that
correct.
figured out
So,
before
yes,
we're
so the
voting on
zoning, we
this.
haven't even gotten to the zoning conversation just yet. I just thought that it would be helpful for you all in the request to proceed.
Okay.
But, yes, sir,
Thank
this
you.
is still early enough that we can answer that question.
Now, this is land behind, adjacent to Ridgeview School, is that where it is? Out across from the Gray Fossil site?
Yes.
453 single-family lots, and plus 133 townhomes.
That was either or plus.
That's plus.
Wow.
So, the thing about bringing it to us originally, say, are you interested in us going ahead and pursue this? Because it will then get to the information about traffic and schools and all
Correct.
that kind of stuff.
Correct, yes. So this is the meeting where we say, hey, this request came to us. Do you guys want us to do this deep dive and get that traffic information, get the water sewer information, get all of that data together, get all of these individuals in a room to speak to this? And if you deny the annexation request to proceed, it ends there. Any development would have to occur in the county. And if you approve the request to proceed, all it does is warrant that conversation. So this can still come in front of you, and you guys can say no down the line. This is just saying, yes, we're willing to have the conversation if you approve this.
But even at that, if we didn't annex this, this project could be built like it is in the county.
I'm not sure what the county standards are.
We can find that out. I would also just note that it does go before the Planning Commission as part of this process as well.
It
to
goes to
look-
them next, right?
It does, to look at the zoning, the land use, and the plan of services.
Correct.
I think this is the first time in this new world of how this works in that sequence that it's a pretty substantial ask. And so I think sharing Commissioner Brock's questions, I don't know that I'd characterize them as concerns, but this is a pretty big development. And it's a
Absolutely.
big development in an area that's going to have implications for a whole lot of public services and how we deliver them. I don't know about the others, but I, for one, I think, given the sequence, I appreciate the Planning Commission's input generally, and I'd like to hear from them. So
Exactly.
I would be interested for if there was a motion to approve it, that would at least let us, otherwise then follow the normal,
Yeah.
pattern we're accustomed to with these.
Yeah, I just don't want the planning commission to think because we're saying, oh, go ahead and investigate it, that we're going to approve it. Or, we're going to really listen to them.
So that's on
as
you,
they
Peyton. Make
dig
sure they
into this.
understand.
I will do my best.
This is a significant, and
Well, and not just the planning commission, I mean, they're looking at one specific part of this development, but also our
Staff,
staff
yeah.
departments and how that affects what they do.
Yeah. I mean, because, that number of houses could almost demand a new school.
and road.
Yeah. So, with that said, do we have a motion to proceed?
I'll make the motion to proceed.
Second? We have a motion.
No, and I will absolutely second it, and I just really want for the public to know as well, we have city and we have city services, and water sewer and all that, but we also have a regional water sewer program that even if this was built in the county, they would have access to. So, you know.
At a higher cost.
At a higher cost, for sure, but, so let's study it really well.
Absolutely.
We're getting our questions ready. All right, so we have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commission, your next order of business is consider approval of a resolution on the Boones Creek corridor study. I think Whitney Hodges is going to help with that one.
Parts of a presentation were included in your packet that was a public presentation that maybe some of you did attend at the library in March. But essentially what was done was about a year ago, the city of Johnson City, Washington County, and the town of Jonesboro entered into a study to look at the Boones Creek corridor from basically the Jackson Boulevard all the way to Roan Street along Boones Creek. And they hired WSP to do that study for them, and they had a public input process to kind of look at what would be some goals that these three jurisdictions could kind of entertain as development occurs. So they created this process of analyzing the existing transportation, kind of projecting into the future, developing a vision, and then what do we do after that? So to look at some of the, I'm going to give a very short presentation, I promise. I'm just looking at some things that are pretty, we would assume, traffic is going to grow in this area as people grow in this area. But what they did was put some numbers to it. They divide, if you read the 82 pages of the study, they divided this into two segments, one being where the railroad trestle is, towards Roan Street, and the railroad trestle towards Jonesboro. And so to look at what 2020 AADT is, and then 2045, and kind of looking at how, yes, there's going to be more people on our roads. They also did some work with land use and to kind of say, this is what we have existing and some projects that we know coming on. And that's what they use to like project their information out. And so we come back to this, and we've got the data. So how do we develop the vision? And they came up with a vision of creating this rural that the Boones Creek Road is this rural spoke between various destinations, and that essentially they want to maintain the character of the rural area and preserve some of those natural resources and scenic beauty. And they've come up with 4 broad goals that, as staff, we certainly can support these goals, as they are some really great things. Of creating safe conditions for all modes of transportation, preserving the environment as we grow and develop, provide a reliable travel and cohesive experience for the user, and then basically focusing along this corridor where existing development or existing infrastructure already exists. One of the ways to do that through land use was creating these character areas. And so this map kind of shows where those character areas are and describes them. The ones kind of in our jurisdiction would be this regional center, which is not surprising because that is where the interstate interchanges and where we have more commercial development going on and along Roan Street. Then you have these kind of a rural and suburban area, and then as you get towards Jonesboro, a neighborhood town center. And each of these have a different feel. As far as some of the transportation visions, where we see this for Johnson City is to continue analyzing some of the data, especially using our gifted staff when it comes to projecting these things out. And then find ways to work with the other jurisdictions when it comes to access management, or TDOT when it comes to maintaining a consistent speed limit along Boones Creek Road, and then maybe as we get through it, some context-sensitive design, street design. So the next steps on this is the Planning Commission did recommend endorsing the study, and out of that would like to have an ad hoc committee of other planning commission members from Jonesboro and Washington County to sit down and talk about where we can collaborate, and then we would present that back to each of our boards. But your next step tonight would be to act on the resolution, and the resolution is provided.
Do you know how long it took to do this study? Because this started some time ago.
About a year.
Okay. Very, very thorough, I mean.
I will say that the Planning Commission, we had some good dialogue about the study, and we felt good about it. And so we look forward to the next steps with this process.
Are
So
there
I make-
questions?
Did I make a
Wait,
motion?
yeah,
I'll
you
make a
can.
motion to approve.
We have a
I'll
motion.
second.
And a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you. The next item of business, Commissioners, is 10.3, to consider approval of an interlocal agreement between the City of Johnson City and 911 Emergency Communication District of Washington County. This item was approved as part of your budget in June. With each of these agencies, it does require the commission to take action on the interlocal agreement. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those.
Are there questions for staff?
I will move for approval then.
Well, we have a motion to
Second.
approve and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. And now what I've been waiting all night for.
Well, and I would ask you, given the late hour of our meeting
No, I
and
wanna
what
hear
we've
from Charlie
covered, we had planned to be able to provide just kind of an update of projects that are going on in Parks and Rec, and I would request to the commission that we cover that at the next meeting, if that's appropriate.
That's the only reason I know. All right, I think that's agreeable to everyone. Sorry, Charlie. So with that, I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. Commissioners, any reports from any of the committees or boards that you serve on?
Mayor Wise, I don't have a report from the committee necessarily, but I would like to encourage everyone to go vote.
I feel like you just stole Commissioner Brock's
yeah.
thunder.
I really did.
Okay.
I've got a few more words about it, too.
Okay, well then, Commissioner Brock, continue on that theme.
Right. Well, yeah, thank you. And, this morning I spoke with Gary McAllister from the Election Commission, and what I heard from him was very disheartening. They've had to readjust their projections for how many people are going to participate in voting in the August 4th election, down to about between 10 and 15% of eligible voters. And his projection further to that was it's probably going to be on the low end.
And that's eligible registered voters,
That's
not
right.
eligible voters.
That's exactly right, right. So, I've got a few more words I would like to say. As a civic leader, I just really feel compelled to speak up, and I want to encourage all eligible citizens who are registered to vote to get out and vote. This is our voice in the democratic process. It's our chance to elect qualified candidates to represent us. And I particularly want to speak to our Johnson City residents, because I've talked to some who kind of feel this is a county election on August the 4th. Well, we are in the county, so, and we're reminded every January when we pay our county taxes. And so I really want everybody to realize it's very important to us to have a say in who is placed on the county commission by districts, voting for the county mayor. And on this ballot as well is the city primary for our school board. So if we don't go vote, our voice is not going to be heard. Lastly, I just want to say that I've heard many times, as I know you have, that we don't teach civics anymore the way we used to in our schools. We've all heard that. Well, right now is our time to demonstrate our civic duty of voting. And what better education could we be giving our young people than to let them see us vote? And if they're young enough, we can take them up there with us to show the voting. So tonight, I want to extend a challenge to leaders in all public organizations, Mrs. Ball, city manager, to all private businesses in our city and county to encourage their employees to go vote. And another challenge to every employee, take somebody with you or organize your family. I have 11 family members that I'm organizing to make sure they all go vote. Invite your social network friends. Go vote. We can change this dismal projection of, in our community, 10% vote? Come on, guys, we can change that. We just have to show up. And so I want to encourage everybody to go vote. Take somebody with you. And Mrs. Ball, I hope in the city that we'll send out something to encourage people to go vote. And I want to see nods in the audience. Everybody, raise your hand if you're going to go vote. Oh, there we go. Look at this. We've already recruited some people. It's really important. Remember, the county commission sets the tax rate of our county taxes, property taxes, and then they designate how that money is spent. So we need to say who's going to be on that commission.
And the overwhelming percentage of the dollars spent on behalf of our students in the Johnson City schools are actually sourced to Washington County's decisions.
That's right.
So if you have a student in the city schools, this election matters to you more than perhaps you know. If you're thinking about who to take to the polls, perhaps take one of your kids. My recently minted 18-year-old voted for the first time this week, and teenagers don't admit to being excited, but I think he might have been a little bit, and I have to think it was because I took him to vote when he was 6 and let him push the button. But set the example. It's really important.
Right. Now, we're in early voting right now through the end of July. Freedom Hall is a very convenient place to go down on the lower level, right, to vote, and then Election Day is August 4th. So I want everybody in here and who might be listening, if anybody's listening, to do the same thing I've done and reach out to people you know, your neighbors, and particularly if you've got an elderly neighbor and they need a lift to the polls, take them.
And as far as Freedom Hall, if you voted early in May, where the early voting is happening in Freedom Hall is actually now considerably closer to the parking area than it was if you voted in the first half or 2/3 of early voting. So the accessibility is vastly improved from the early voting in April. So with that, Commissioner Hunter.
I was going to say.
What else can you say about voting?
Well, I was just going to say, I did vote, and Commissioner Brock, I brought a friend with me.
And there were 2 people in there,
There were
right?
2, us, and they told us to stand behind each other so that the line was starting to back up. But, some of the hindrances of the past are no longer a roadblock to voting. There's never been an easier process to voting, a safer place to vote, or more accessible. If you don't have your voter registration card, don't worry about it. If you've moved recently and your address isn't correct on your driver's license, don't worry about it. They've got all this, they've built out technology and made it extremely easy, and the people are very friendly, and there's still not a line, so.
Well, and I'll add to that. I think we have one of the best election commissions that we've had in a long, long time, and a election administrator who really is modernizing the voting process and the accessibility. One of the things as elected leaders that we need to do is make voting as easy as possible.
Yep.
And so to support that, and I have absolute trust in our process that we use here, and go vote.
And so with that.
Vote all out.
Vote all out. All right.
Yes, there we
With
go.
that, we stand adjourned.